I think what started it for us was there were a couple families that moved here into the Mesa here from California, and they built beautiful homes and raised horses and had cattle, and they were buying up orchard after orchard and demolishing the house. About that time, Harry volunteered to participate in the planning commission. And so he was working in the planning commission to see what effect we could have. And then the county commissioners hired Paula Massa to meet with communities all over the county to let them know when something was happening in their area, and if they wanted input, they could have input. They asked for volunteers for people that wanted to work on to be a committee to work on it for our area. And John and I were 2 of the 6 that volunteered. And so we started meeting weekly at our home. After a short while, we discovered there were other Palisade community people with the same concerns, and so we started working with them. But that's how we got started.
The shale thing gave us a lot of momentum because, everybody was concerned about the loss of land because they were looking around and people were, making all these speculative statements, and they were saying that this stuff's going to be developed like Colorado Springs, and you can't do anything about it. We suffered a lot of indignities, so to speak.
In the community?
Abusive talk. We were nuts. We were the wild-eyed radicals at that time. We would plan something, and we would make a plan, and then it would just get ignored.
And so it sounds like there were a couple things. You mentioned this local committee that you were on, Bonnie, and John, you were on, and then Harry, you were on the planning commission.
Yeah.
Doris, you were on the planning commission as well?
Later on, yeah.
But I think the thing that started this was Exxon had built their plant up at Parachute, and they said this whole valley was going to be developed. It was going to be one big city when they got through developing. And that really set us.
Yeah, alarmed a lot of people.
Really got us started.
Yeah. You had a different vision for the valley.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, we didn't want them to come in and encroach on everything that we had built.
So you started this local committee here that Bonnie, you and John served on, and then you also looked at the planning commission and as a way to protect this area.
Planning was new in Colorado at that time. I don't know when the laws were passed that allowed commissioners to have land use powers, but it was sometime right in there, I think.
So Doc Albers, who was married to one of the county commissioners, informed us of the land trust. And that was the first thing that seemed the most effective of all of our efforts.
Yeah.
It didn't get wiped out over and over and over again. That was when we started pursuing the land trust.
And so that was not the first or second choice. It was just
it was quite a little ways down the line that came up.
It was all new stuff to us.
I never heard much about land trusts prior to that.
There wasn't any. There were some land trusts back east that had been developed for other purposes.
I know that they questioned us because for a long time farms couldn't be put in conservation easements, and finally the IRS put it in there.
And so you learned, you had some frustrations with how you were proceeding with the planning commission and this local citizens group.
Big time.
You learned about the land trust, and so what happened after you learned about this concept?
Well, I think some way we got in touch with the Trust for Public Land out of San Francisco. Because we didn't know how to put together a land trust. So Jenny Gerard came out and we met, had a few meetings, and she tried to explain how they worked. And, it sounded like smoke and mirrors, what are these things, and how can they be binding? but it took quite a while for us to kind of put the pieces together and figure out how a land trust worked. And so when we were ready, we finally had the, what do you call it, the founding meeting at Woods' house.
Ivan and Jane.
Ivan and Jane's house.
Then Butler's, and we put in the first two
Yeah, this was one of the
properties to be included in the land trust.
Sure. And so that was, I think, 82 is my understanding.
82. Well, we organized in 80,
Yes,
I believe,
that's
as
right.
a land trust, but it wasn't until 82 that we could donate the land.
And so you started the organization in 1980, and was there sort of a lot of support in the community area? Was it still
No,
Doris?
it
Was it?
No, we didn't even have family support. Yeah, my dad was hostile. I had to trick him several times.
And a lot of people said, "How can you say that? You know, this is your family's land, and you'll make a whole lot more money that way." And that wasn't the point. We weren't trying to make money. We were just thinking the best use of the land because
Well,
the land was already established as farmland with irrigation, but the whole community was established as an agricultural community. And to when you bring in housing, you have a totally different mindset than you do for orcharding.
Harry, your father proposed this development. You didn't oppose it local, at the Palisade meetings, but at the Grand Junction, the Mesa County meetings, you did. What year was that? Was before the Land Trust was formed?
No,
it was after.
It was after.
Yeah, he knew what we were trying to do, but he didn't see housing as incompatible with. He was going to develop a bunch of houses on the hill there.
But we hadn't more than filed our income tax
Yeah,
deduction when they told us, wait a minute, you can't do that. And according to their rules, we could do that. And it took us 6 years to...
Yeah, about 6 years on that one.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And so was this, now my understanding is that there were a couple different IRS issues.
Yes.
One was the individual tax returns for you, for the Butlers, the Talbots, and Herman. And each of you got audited there and challenged. And then the other, but behind that was challenging the nonprofit status of the organization.
Doris and I spent hours going
Thank
through
God for
records
them.
and so forth.
That
at
probably
the
saved
courthouse and we met with the hearing officer about 5-6 times. I don't know. Each time he'd say, "Well, now you can't do it that way. You've got to do it this way." And so we'd go back and we'd do it this way, and we'd come up with they owed us more money. Each time
He tried
that
every
we
trick in the
figured,
book.
and he corrected us. They owed us more money than what we had originally started out with.
We could have lost the whole thing at that point.
Well, then they tried to get us to abandon, you remember?
Yeah.
Now, that was referring to the organization, not your individual tax returns, but the land trust.
No, the land
status.
trust itself go private because he said this is precedent setting. It's going to set a precedent for the whole country.
If you guys lost that
if we
dispute,
lost, yeah.
I see.
Yeah.
He did not recognize just who he was speaking to, and the persistence and the thoughtfulness. They just sort of underestimated you guys as a bunch of farmers, and little did they know.
Yeah.
They finally told us, "You don't owe us and we don't owe you."
Yeah.
So, with the individual returns, you guys were audited about the value of the easement, and some of that was complicated because you donated the easements when the boom was still occurring, and then by the time the IRS came back to look, it had busted here, and they were questioning values, among other things. So, I mean, one of the things that amazes me is you have this, things that you've described, Bonnie, and you have these projections of the valley being filled from one end to the other with houses, and then you start the organization, you contribute the easements, and then the bust comes, so there's no development pressure.
Yeah.
I mean,
It's definitely decreased.
it's dead for a period of time.
Yeah.
You guys are spending time and money and frustration fighting the IRS on two different fronts, on the individual returns and the organization returns. And yet you guys persisted along. You maintained the organization, you had board meetings. I mean, what motivated you during that time to keep going?
The reason was that we were doing what we believed was right. People, they said to us, this didn't make sense at all that you would give this development right. They couldn't understand that it wasn't that we were giving a development right, it was we were trying to protect the agriculture.
We were so sure of the fact that we wanted to save this particular area. Exxon was trying to develop a whole lot of things, and we were determined they weren't going to.
Harry, do you have thoughts about, during the bust and fighting the IRS?
Well, I can speak a little from the planning commission standpoint. First of all, the planners did not believe that the shale thing wasn't going to continue to grow and be a major factor. We had community meetings, and we found out that the community really supported keeping the orchards.
And it seems like there were 3 different developments on East Orchard Mesa being proposed at that time. And we made out a very detailed questionnaire, and we gave one to every adult on East Orchard Mesa. Then we came back a week or so later, gathered them up, and then our committee went through and tallied all of each item. And we brought it back to the community, had another community meeting, but we were delighted to discover that 90% of the people wanted it to remain in agriculture. The community told us, great, take this information to the county commissioners and then bring back to us anytime there's a question or something new to consider, and we will tell you what we want you to do.
And so you had community support, but some of the other
Total community support.
Here,
Yes.
but broader
on East
Mesa.
Orchard Mesa.
Yes.
Yeah, we had we were a very strong unit because it was the community telling us what they wanted us to say. And I think we did a very credible job of that.
When did you decide, and why did you decide that you wanted to move from being all volunteer to having staff? So, that was a huge step for the organization. And it's something you guys hadn't done for the first 14 years. So do you remember that period of time?
I think we just realized that it was getting to be too much for a volunteer organization.
Was there wide consensus on the board, or was there some disagreement?
I think so.
I think it was
I don't think anybody disagreed.
but I think we had no idea of where it would go. And I think that we made a very wise choice in selecting you because you had a vision that we didn't have, I think. But by you giving your full time to it and knowing how to get money and then adding more people as we grew, it was through your work that we gained that vision, I believe.
But so then my understanding is you moved the office back to Palisade.
Yes.
And then Doris, there was money now. There was some money in the bank. There was activity. So you started working then part-time.
Yeah.
Keeping books and managing things for years.
And we went in the garage, the old Hoffman garage.
That's right.
We were there when Rob got hired. We were in the Hoffman garage.
Yeah.
And later on, we were in the bank building.
Yeah.
And that's the photograph you've seen, Dylan, of me in 1996 in front of what's now is it called the Twist? It's an art gallery now. It was not an art gallery back then.
Can't remember.
You and I have very vivid memories, John, of you and I wheeling that double desk.
Down the street.
This is a double-sided banker's desk that was huge and heavy and perfect. And so it was in a garage. And so John and I, this was 23 years ago, John and I put that thing on dollies and rolled it down the street. One of the things that has just amazed me, and I talked with Harry a little bit about this the other day, is just you guys had such ownership and so much time and effort invested in the organization. You know, by the time I was hired 16 years after you guys founded, I mean, you persevered through a lot of stuff that a lot of people that weren't as motivated would have walked away from. You continued the organization, even though there was a real estate bust and there wasn't development pressure and there are years between transactions. One of the things that just has amazed me is you all have embraced change. You've not tried to control, you know, you haven't stifled the organization's growth. And so why do you think you were open to new kinds of projects and new directions and letting go of something that you put so much into creating?
Well, I guess we just faced each problem by itself and got through it. We had each other's support all the way through, which made a big difference.
Mm-hmm.
I remember feeling a little bit of concern, you know, when we handed it over to somebody else, but we observed and we felt that what we were doing was productive.
Well, we kind of grew together, you know.
Yeah, no question.
Yeah, we were in the same boat.
Do you guys have any thoughts or comments or memories about, I mean, you hired me in 96, and you also did other things. I mean, the board brought on new people that didn't have an ag background. That was another area where the founders were, you know, let go. They said, we're going to have other folks on the board who have the same authorities.
I see incompetent people come on board, gave us peace of mind, or gave me peace of mind.
What do you feel best about in terms of what the Land Trust has accomplished, or what is the impact the Land Trust has made in your mind?
Well, I feel that in my lifetime, this is probably one of the most important things to me in my lifetime, is to be part of this organization. Because I think that, you know, that we've accomplished something.
Yeah, tangible.
Yeah.
Well, we owe a lot to Doris. A lot. Had it not been for Doris, we probably wouldn't have a land trust.
Yeah.
I have said many times that without Bonnie and Doris, that the land trust would likely not exist.
Yeah.
So, Doris, what about you? What are some of the things that you're proud of, or what do you think about the impact of the organization? Or
we ended up being known all over the country because we persisted against all odds. One of the smartest things we did probably was hire you and
I think it
and expand so much.
do you think, I mean, you guys have talked so much about East Orchard Mesa and the fruit industry. What has been the impact on the land trust in terms of the fruit industry here in the neighborhood we're in right now, the East Valley?
Our children are farmers here. Had it not been for the success of the land trust, we very likely wouldn't be. We were just so uncertain of there being anything here.
There being the land available for a fruit industry.
Our family would have been scattered all over the place.
Well, I think that considering that we started out without being well known, we have become really well known and have accomplished a tremendous amount over the years and made a huge impact on this area. Because I don't believe there would have been any orchards here if we hadn't done what we did.
Been like the Redlands. Yeah.
We'd be like the Redlands. Or we would be like Fruta. Fruta is just one great big subdivision down there. And that's what we would have been if we hadn't done this. And, you know, the raising peaches, there aren't too many places that can raise peaches. So I think that actually the area is lucky that we thought to keep it that way.
The way I look at it is that I'm so proud of what we've done. We've got enough hold, land held in this out of the valley that we're going to be okay now.
It was surprising to recognize what a different clientele or personality or mindset became the land trust than what it started.
Sure.
And, you know, that was a fear initially, but a group of people who would contribute valued what had been done and valued, even though they were not a part of it, it was a blessing to them to have this kind of a community.
And what's cool for me is that they value what happens here in East Orchard Mason and Palisade. They value what this brings to this community,
They
what this adds to this
recognized
community.
that it was worth saving.
No question. And for me, that's made us powerful. Is how can we connect people that might be more interested in spending money on a mountain bike and mountain biking than farming, but they love riding their bikes around Palisade, and they love that this makes our community unique. It helps strengthen our economy. It makes this a special place to live. Not every community is blessed with this kind of landscape and this community, this aspect.